Okay. A little boring back there. There we go. Oh, hey, look, there's already somebody here. If you do see me, let me know in the chat. If you hear me, let me know in the chat. I still don't do this often enough that it is live. It is live. I am here. Um, yeah. Oh, good. You do hear me. Perfect. Perfect. Um, wow. Awesome. How are you guys here? What? Uh, I find it amazing that I turned this on. I don't have any kind of schedule. I don't, but I turn it on. I start going live, and boom, 10 people are. How is this possible? I don't notifications. Okay. Um. Yeah. I find it amazing. I don't. I guess I personally tend not to watch anything live unless I actually know it's going to happen and then I show up. But yeah, I it's interesting that it's interesting. It's always interesting how do other people use software or how do people use tools, and so it's fascinating that I turned this thing on 2 minutes ago and there are 11 people here. So craziness. Um, so it's 6:30 in the morning. It was a rough morning. Uh, our daughter is sick, and at like 4:30, I woke up. I was like, I cannot sleep. This is so okay. I'm gonna go use the toilet, or as we parents of young children like to say, go to the potty. And sometime soon, I will get that word out of my vocabulary and never say it again. But I go and I come back. Maybe I checked the feed, so maybe it was 10 minutes. And my wife has taken over my side of the bed, and my daughter has taken over her side of the bed, and my wife just goes, it's like, "Oh, okay." So I went downstairs. I went to sleep on the couch, and then I woke up and it's like, well, what should I do? I think I will try streaming. And one of the things I started doing a little bit last night, I I intended to create a video that was a first look in a while of LM Studio. Now, it's a little bit weird coming from me since I do mostly content about Ollama. Ollama is what I'm most familiar with. In fact, I was part of the Ollama team for, well, for the first 6 months of Ollama's existence. Um, and LM Studio was definitely a tool that inspired the creation of Ollama. LM Studio, as well as the Uba Booga text generation web UI, and a few other tools. They were the reason Ollama exists, because we saw that there were so many tools out there, and none of them did a great job of making it easy to run Ollama drama. Yep. Very few of them did a good job of making it easy to run on your laptop or whatever machine it was. Okay, my bitrate is lower. Hmm. Um, open widgets. Bitrate is man, I wish I could control my bitrate. But I can't. Okay, it seems to be good now. I don't know, maybe somebody was doing something on my network. Um, Let me resize my chat window so I can actually see it. Yeah, I okay. Okay. So, yeah, I okay, good. And hopefully I will see the chat message when you say that you've lost my connection. But anyway, so I was with the team. We separated ways in January, at which time I started pushing the YouTube channel more often because they didn't really want to do the YouTube channel before, and I did, and now I get to do it. But now that I'm no longer, before when I was part of the team, just like anywhere else I've worked, when I worked at Datadog, we never talk about our competition in a public way. If we're at a conference together and a competitor comes to our booth, we give them the demo. We show them what we can do, and there is no um, uh, uh, no need to push them out of the booth. There's no be friends with them, be helpful to them, help them understand what we're trying to do, and that's always what we try to do at Datadog. I've noticed we always notice when we went to other people's booths, they would be like, "Oh, perhaps we could do this on this side or somewhere. Go away," but always be good to your competitors. And the same thing with Ollama. Nobody in the Ollama team is ever going to say anything bad or anything controversial or whatever about LM Studio or text generation web UI or any other tools. You just don't do that as a company. I'm no longer with the company. I'm no longer with the product. I'm no longer with the project. I'm no longer there. And so I can do whatever I want. And so this time I wanted to take a look at LM Studio and try to be objective. Obviously, I can't be totally objective because I have so much more experience with Ollama, but really try. And many jobs ago, I worked for an analyst firm in New York City, and my job was to do competitive analysis work. And even if I was familiar with a product, really try to pull myself out of that and take in the client's product. And so the client would often be companies like a big client was what was it called? I've just forgotten it. Candle Corporation, and their competitors were BMC, Patrol, and Intel LANDesk, and HP. There was some systems management tool there, and we'd bring all these in and play around with them. Or the competitor was Oracle and their video server, or DB2 from IBM, and bring in all the competing databases and yeah, and even if I was more familiar because I got the training from that company. Try to step back and be objective and do a review, which is hard, but you really have to. So we'll see if that works. But at the same time, I'm also going to try to keep an eye on the chat to see if there's any questions coming in. How do you monetize this approach? Now, I assume you're asking about how do I versus how does Ollama. Oh, I just realized I have no water. Yeah, a little parched. So me personally, I am no longer. I'm not employed. I'm relying. Relying is a hard is. I don't have an income at the moment. But other than YouTube, I am purely relying on YouTube AdSense. Now, most people, if they're doing that, this would be, they would be going broke. They'd be selling their house if you're just relying on YouTube ad revenue, because this does not make much. When the month before I went full in on this, My videos, I'd be posting I'd post a video and then 3 months later, and 2 months, then the next day. And so it was very haphazard. Now I'm on this very somewhat strict schedule of every Monday-ish and every Thursday-ish, I put out a video. And some videos do great, 30, great for me, 30,000 views, 50,000 views. And then other videos, which I think, I put more work into and they get like 1,000 views over the course of a few weeks. And so, before in December, my, the YouTube will pay out if you hit $100, and they'll add up all the money until you hit $100, and then they send you a check for $100. And so in July through December, I was averaging like $15 a month. And so somebody looking at $15 a month, they think, obviously I'm not going to go full time on that because that's just insanity. But the month that I went full in, January, what was January? I think January I hit like $60. Still not enough to survive. Definitely not enough to maintain this house. And February was from 60 to 500, which was good. Nice improvement there. Down to 400. And then April just finished, and I'll be seeing a check in about 10 days for April, which came out to 550. And this month looks on track to do probably 6 or 7. So it's increasing, it's climbing. And the goal is to, by the end of 2 years, to be making a salary, equivalent of approaching what I was making the last few places. And that's the goal, at least to cover insurance. Insurance costs a lot of money here in the US. But also help with maintaining the house and all that. And that's the goal. Now, how can I do this? How can I do this, survive and maintain a house and my wife and my daughter, and make sure that we are able to live? Well, I worked for I was able to do the dream, the dream that a lot of software developers or software people hope will happen at some point in the future. They're going to hit it big and IPO. And I was lucky. I went to, I was working for a couple of that did nothing. One was called Yoda, which was web performance optimization. I went to a company called Playster that was doing real estate websites. And then I went to do my own themes for WordPress. That didn't go well. But then this little startup called, actually an investor called, and said, "You want to do this evangelist thing?" The CTO, they're expecting their first child, and the wife is saying no more on the travel. So I basically took over the CTO's travel schedule and doing all his presentations as the company's first evangelist. So I did that. Company, there's no chance of this company going big. But in the initial negotiation, I said, look, I'll take, 5,000 off my salary if you add an extra 0 to the number of shares I get. It's like, well, shares aren't going to be worth anything for the foreseeable future. So sure, no problem. And so I do that. And then all of a sudden, the first few events I go to, no one has heard of this company. Like, how many out of the 500 people in the room listening to my presentation, how many of you have heard of this company? One person raises their hand because they got the t-shirt. But after a lot of hard work from everyone at the company, we grew from, when I started, we were 30 people. But by the time I left, 8 years later, we were at 5,000 people. 2 years before, we had gone public. And so I was at an event in Berlin. Was it in Berlin? Yeah, it was in Berlin. And then I got the notification, okay, the IPO is going to happen on Friday or Thursday. get on a plane, go buy a suit, meet us in New York. And I got to fly home, go to NASDAQ, be at the opening bell, and Datadog was the unicorn. Datadog went from this nothing company that no one heard of, that had just gone to reInvent and like bet the whole company on reInvent going well, and it did. And now Datadog is, I mean, my mother would know about Datadog even if I didn't work there. So when you're at a company early on and IPOs, there's stuff that comes out, and so I'm able to survive on that. That's a long answer to the question. How do I monetize? I sort of am trying to, but I don't have to. I can't. I'm not that well, but I definitely need money coming in at some point. I won't be able to do this forever, but that is the long, short answer to the question. Many tubers selling courses or PDFs. Yeah, that was originally I was thinking I would do a course on Ollama because, that's the thing I know, or maybe even make it more general about local AI tools. And I think that could do well, but it takes time. And I guess I could do it faster if I want to do it a not so great approach. But anytime you're putting a good amount of, one of the things I did at Datadog, I started the community team, which is now 60, 70 people. I was the first evangelist there, and I started the training team as well, because somebody said, we should probably do training. And I created the first training site and ended up creating the whole system for how training is done at Datadog. And so I know what it's like to build a course, and it takes a lot of work. And it's enough work doing the videos and making sure I'm doing a video that I'm proud of twice a week is hard enough. And maybe if I go back to only doing one video a week or one video every 2 weeks, but this is what I love doing. I want to get the video out. So maybe at some point I will be able to get these things done easier and faster so that I can do courses. I think that's totally an amazing way to go. There's a friend of mine who does a podcast, and I was the co-host on that podcast for a while. So the guy's name is Brett Fisher. He runs for a while, for about 4 or 5 months. We were co-hosts together on his podcast called DevOps and Docker Talk. We had some of our guests while I was on were Scott Johnston, who is CEO of Docker, and we had one of the 3 guys that created Kubernetes. Which one? The one who's the corporate vice president at Microsoft now. Anyway, him. We had a lot of great people on the show while I was on, and I have to say, the numbers on his show were definitely better when I was on it. But hey, whatever. But my goal there was, Brett does these courses, and his, there's 2 or 3 people that do courses for Docker, and he's definitely in the top, either the top one or the top 1 or 2, and that's where his money comes from. He does that. He does a little bit of consulting as well, and he does this podcast, which makes almost nothing. But that's how most people know him, is through the podcast. But he does these courses, and when I was doing the podcast with him, he was setting up a course with Maven, and it was a lot of work, and he was losing a lot of sleep trying to get this done. And there are definitely easier ways of doing courses, and some people do a course that is an hour long and sell it for $20, which an hour long course isn't really a course. It's kind of like a YouTube video, I don't know. And I've even thought about doing, making sure that my videos fit a specific, create a curriculum, create the, in order to learn Ollama, you need to learn all these things and figure out what those things are. Still haven't really figured all that out. And then build videos that fit along that line so that by the end I have a course. And I like the idea of keeping it free so that the end user, the person taking the course, doesn't have to pay anything. I just get the money from YouTube for AdSense. Or if I push or have an ad on there, then I get some money from that. I much prefer that idea versus having somebody pay up front, pay $100, $200. Some of these courses, insanity. Paying $5,000 for a course where you have to pay up front before you've actually seen anything, and then is the value there? No. I did. I think part of my thought process there is so I lived in Europe for 10 years. I worked for a company called OpenText, and I was a trainer for a product called WriteFax, and I traveled the world. It was an amazing job. I mean, I would be in Australia for 4 weeks, come home for 10 hours, and go to Dubai for 2 weeks, and come home for 15 hours, and go to Buenos Aires for 2 weeks. And it was nonstop. It was, 320 nights a year in hotels. Starwood Hotels treated me so well. Always the free upgrade to the nicest, best room in at the Westin in Melbourne, Australia, which is part of the old post office, and it's just like the best room is just gorgeous, like oh God, it was a wonderful life while that happened. But anyway, I came back to the U.S. I moved to Boston, and after the first couple startups kind of fizzled, and didn't have a job anymore. Actually, no, after the first one fizzled, I did this program called Startup Institute. Now, Startup Institute is kind of one of these boot camp things, and the door's open. The cost to do this program is like, I don't know, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, something like that. It's something like, it's not cheap. It's $10,000 or $5,000. It was a lot of money. But if you get a job from that event, and you're hired by one of the sponsors of the program, and there were a lot of them, then they cover your fee. So as long as you get a job at the end, you'd pay nothing. And I got a job at the end, so I paid nothing. So it was great. That version of the program, I think they couldn't sustain that that process, and I think they got sued. I don't know if they're still in business. It was an arm, originally an arm of Techstars, which is kind of like Y Combinator but East Coast, and they've got problems. I don't know if they're still running. Maybe they are. Maybe they're awesome still. GitHub sponsorship could be interesting. Yeah. I mean, I am not the best developer, but so I create lots of tools, and I've shared those tools on my GitHub repo. But then there's the just creating the tool initially. That's like 20% of the job. There's all the support that needs to happen as well, and so I put out this tool to automatically name your images based on stuff generated from a model. It generates the keywords and renames the file. There's problems with that, and so people encounter problems on Windows. Like, I don't know Windows. I mean, yes, I did know Windows. I used to work at Microsoft, but Windows today is a lot different from the Windows XP and ME and all the other versions of Windows that were out when I worked at Microsoft in Redmond. And so doing support, and also just there was somebody who did a pull request, like made one of the tools better. It did it a little bit in a way that I didn't really want to do. So, well, how do I react? I don't know how to, and that kind of, I think that might still be sitting there. It's like 3 months later. Uh, all that support, that after support, is what a company does. That's Ollama, creating Ollama. That's one thing. Doing all the support, that's hard. And so I don't know if writing, relying on GitHub sponsorship implies to me that I need to do all that stuff better. I don't really want to do that stuff better. I want to do the videos. So I really want to focus on this is the longest possible answers to all these questions. What else is there? Like the how-to videos online. But you are great at explaining what you can realistically home run for home run AI. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. So I think predictable income comes after 12 months. Make nearly daily videos. Yeah. I was doing initially I was doing videos every 3 days or 3 videos a week, and that just was too much because I'm trying to do too much in the video. I'm trying to keep it polished. People will often comment, well, how's your audio so good? Or how's your, how are, various things that I do so good? It's like, I put a lot of time into making these videos. And that's how, you put in the work. And I've been doing this a long time. Yes, my first video on YouTube was posted about 15 years ago. Actually, my first video was probably posted a little bit before then, but it's just long since deleted. The oldest video that is on the platform, I think, might be a walkthrough of an apartment I had just bought in Amsterdam, and stopped renting. And I bought this apartment. I was doing a gut renovation, and I was filming it each week. A walkthrough of this apartment. Just to show friends and family back in the US, here's what I'm up to. And then I did a video on using WriteFax in Outlook for sending faxes from Outlook. It's a terrible video. I was sitting on a bed in a hotel somewhere, because again, I was always in hotels, recording this video, and I'm sitting down, I'm crouched down actually on this bed. And when you're sitting down, your voice just, I'm standing up because I'm stronger, and I can be more emotional and more excited when I'm standing up. And when I'm sitting down, I'm like, yes, and here's how WriteFax works, and you press this button, and I was very timid and shy and slow, and I didn't know what to do, and yeah, and there was a lot of ums and uhs, and so I'm sending multiple seconds of video per second. Anyway, so those videos early on, I keep them on because even though they're terrible, it's great to see how I've come along. So I've been doing this a long time. I haven't been doing this just for 12 months, but I have been doing the more predictable stuff for 12 months. And yes, I am 100% confident that based on the way the numbers are going so far, I was hovering around 4,000 subscribers for a long, long time, up until January of this year, when I left Ollama and I went full in on videos. My subscriber count was at 4,000, and since then it has been pretty steady, accelerating a little bit, sometimes going down, but generally going up and up faster. And I'm coming up to about 20,000 subscribers. So that's, a whole lot better than 4,000, and 4,000 for a long time. And so that's amazing. I think I'm on a steady trajectory for hitting 100,000 by end of the year, maybe first couple of months of next year, calendar months. I've got like a hair on my mouth. And yeah, so and you can't rely on, subscribers doesn't mean money, but it definitely helps, and helps get eyes on videos. And the more eyes you have on the video early-ish on, it doesn't really matter what time you post the video, but Um, it all helps. And so the more people are watching one video, they're going to watch other videos, and so they all they all help build up more views. And the more views I get, the more ads you all watch or skip or whatever, and the more money hopefully I get. Hmm. I have a I am your follower from Nepal. I would love to know where you live in Nepal. So I let's see. Can I point to right there? My that thing that I can't remember what they're called. I bought that in where did I buy that? I bought that. Oh, it was somewhere in Kathmandu. But I've been to Kathmandu a number of times. I love it. My sister used to run a free healthcare. Oh, Kathmandu is where you're from. I think we might have talked about this before. I might have. I kind of forget things. But my sister ran a free healthcare clinic in a little town called Jiri, which was I think the original base camp for Everest before helicopters all came in. And she ran that healthcare clinic there for 30 years or more, and really to collect blood samples to take back to the U.S. to do genetic testing and genetic research, because the Gerals, that family group, it's basically one big family group in Jiri and there's other towns nearby. They've been together, it's one family group with a few people marrying in and out, but it's one family group for forever. And so it's an amazing population to study. And how do they, there are intestinal worms that you get by living in maybe for what we might consider unsanitary conditions, um, and so but only certain people get sick from those intestinal worms, and uh, um, and so why do some people get sick and not others? And so she had that project there. She had other projects in Mongolia and Brazil and a few other places. Far better miles on airlines than I ever had. But yeah, so she ran this free healthcare clinic, and it was interesting because she got so much praise from not praise, but so much thanks from the people of Nepal for running this project. And um, before the assassination of all the royal family a few years ago, she would every time she'd visit, she'd often have a visit with the king to about here's what's going on at the project. And when there was all the problems with Maoist rebels taking over large portions of like the roads and um, she would often get escorts, military escorts. The senior commander of the army in Nepal would personally drive her out in his own personal vehicle with a military escort. So it was a pretty interesting, I mean, amazing, amazing place to go. I mean, just being in Nepal is just it's so peaceful. It's so beautiful, especially when you get outside of Kathmandu. Kathmandu is amazing too. I have so many great memories of Nepal, and I just love it. I really, really love it. I'd love to go back again. It's going to be very different from, when I first went. I went when I was probably about 20 years old, and I, my sister, took me. It was like a Christmas present or birthday present to, it's the kind of present that was so amazing to me and yet so inexpensive for her because, she's doing this. She for 30 years, she flew to Nepal 4 or 5 times a year for work. So therefore, she was able to get first class tickets. And so you build up that many points. She was in her like 7th million miles. And so they just give you tickets. Like, oh, you want to get a ticket for your brother? Great. Here's a first class upgrade. Have fun. It's really great when you're at that level. Um, and so it was a free thing from her, and it made such an impact on my life, I think. And I've been a few times since, which has always been great. Okay, so I had one goal to talk about LM Studio, and I haven't talked about LM Studio. Let's see, what else is there in the? So yeah, I love Nepal. Is this direct going to be up later in the channel? I'm sure, but I need to. Yeah, I think all of my, there have been a few live things that I ended up pulling down. There was one that I did, and my daughter came in, and she sang on the stream, some song that she was really into at the time, and her face is on the stream, and we've been very careful to not have her photo online. Not that, I mean, it's not like we're special or anything, but I want her to be able to make that decision about whether to be online or to be visible online, to have a personality online when she gets older. And so been very careful about not having photos or videos of her until she's ready to make that decision. So that stream I took off because I don't want to share her. Again, it's not. I think any parent should. Oh, I can't say any parent should. I don't know. So that video I took down, and I think there was one other one where I just said something. I mean, I say stupid things all the time, and I'm fine with that. I've done for a long time. Speaking for when I was at Datadog, I'd refer to certain metrics as sexy metrics, and I'd be scolded like, you can't say that. Like, come on, it's fun. You got to make this stuff fun, otherwise it's really boring. So I'm totally okay with saying stupid things by mistake, but when I say something really stupid, I take that down. So I think there's only been one time I've said something really, really insanely stupid. So I took that down. But often I forget the stupid things I say. Let's see, the gold. Okay, so there was I see that some David Lasausi. Thank you so much. I missed that $5 tip. These are, and actually there was another one. Was there another one? Merrick Russin. Thank you so much for the, was that Swiss francs? 10 Swiss francs. That's a thank you. That's just great. It is CHF is Swiss francs, is it? I loved going to where did I used to go to on the Swiss border with, is it Swiss in Germany or Swiss in Italy? There was a town called Constance. I've been to a few times because at another company, OpenText, we had just bought OSE Technologies, OSE Document Technologies, and so we'd often go to Constance. And at the time I was living in Amsterdam, and so I do the most indirect route possible, going through France and Spain and back up and through Italy, and because they gave me a car and I could drive anywhere. I used to love living in Europe. It was great, especially having a car that somebody else paid the gas for. Okay. What else? Follower from Afghanistan. That's amazing. Well, thank you for Asina from Afghanistan. I remember being on a plane once with when I was traveling so much, they'd always bump me up into first, which was great because I always bought like the lowest coach class ticket, but they'd always bump me up to first, and I'd sit next to these really interesting people. And one person I sat next to was was asked. He was Afghani, but had moved to the States before 9/11, before any of that, but was asked by the U.S., do you want to go back to Afghanistan to help run the leadership? Not be the senior. I mean, he wasn't like top, but in the cabinet. And he did that for a little while, and he talked about how you'd fly in on these big, what are they, I don't know what the numbers are, C-140, C-40, something like that. This big plane, works crew down get onto the military base there, in order to avoid surface to air missiles and stuff. But he had so many amazing stories of his time in Afghanistan before, and then more recently, I assume I think he's gone back to living in the U.S. He said that it was pretty stressful being in Afghanistan at that time. I can't imagine what it's like now. Or I just don't know anything about, when I don't know much about Afghanistan. I know it's among the many places where I sometimes wish I looked different and I could, or came from a different place, because there's so many places I would love to see in the world that I can't, because I'm this white American or Brit. I mean, I have two passports, American and British, and I can't go and see I'd love to see parts of Iran and parts of Afghanistan and parts of, so many parts of the world that I can, but it's kind of risky for me. It's like my dad, somebody said I remind them to drink water. I forget to drink water. There was a time when I was 16, and it was the first time I went to England on my own. And when you're 16, or I might have been 15, you're underage minor, or whatever the name is by the airlines, and so you're required to be escorted by a flight attendant. And so the flight attendant escorts me over. At that time, I'm like 2 feet taller than the flight attendant, but they got to escort me and had me signed off at the other end by which family member picking me up. And every time, I think I did that twice, because originally I was born in England. But my dad would always remind me, when I was 12, he was going to, he was born in England, so originally British. Well, he's Welsh, and his dad was a chiropractor, and after World War II, he was already based in Nigeria, or was down in Nigeria for a long time, and loved the place, the people, everything about Nigeria, and so he moved his family to Lagos, in Nigeria, and that's where my dad's sister grew up. But my dad went to boarding school back in Wales, and but he would come down for summers, just summer, not winter. Winter he would stay up at the boarding school alone. It was an interesting boarding school. I think the one other claim to fame for that boarding school, one kid that was like a year younger than him was Anthony Hopkins. So they went to school together, and he would get you usually go by boat, and take the boat from England all the way down to Nigeria on his own. Every one of these trips, he'd go on his own, starting at like age 11 or 12. And at one point he flew, and of course it requires 7 stops, getting off at like Tripoli and all these other towns all the way along, for refueling. And then they've got to wait for a few hours for the plane to refuel, get back on the plane, and continue on. So, and he did this, all by himself, for years. And so he would laugh at me needing an escort at 15. At some point, we're going to look at LM Studio. What else we got here? Do I start with Ollama or LLMs or LangChain or Python or ML or linear algebra or what? I want to learn it all. Yes, I do too. And someday I'm going to learn it all. I don't know. I mean, so with the LLMs, I mean, there's a lot you can learn about how LLMs work, but you don't have to know it. Um, I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. What are you trying to learn? Learning more about linear algebra, yeah, it makes sense to do for not just for language. I mean, for if you're trying to understand how SSH works and how cryptography works and how encryption works and how all these things. I mean, understanding how to do that stuff, yes, that makes sense. I don't know if you need to dedicate yourself full on to that first. ML, oh, sounds like somebody's awake. I hear. Hi. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No. Okay. Okay. Great. Great. No. I'll stop it. Yeah, I was in. I went to pee. I came back in today. You went.
I did.
Yeah. Because you had my side, your side. Right. My wife has no recollection of the hand held out saying, "No, you can't come in. Come back to bed." So you know what? I think learning a language, a programming language, is definitely helpful. Whether you want to start with Python or TypeScript or JavaScript or Go or Rust. I mean, the cool language now is Rust. But um, you know, I think one of the best things for learning like starting with the basics and trying to learn a language and do interesting things with it, probably one of the best overall introductions that you can do, and I think they also include some AI stuff in there, is to do the CS50, I believe it is, from Stanford University. It's free. You can do it on. I think all the videos are on YouTube. They do it every year because it's the actual class at Harvard. Harvard, MIT. It's at Harvard. Yeah, it's in that beautiful. Okay. So used to live in Boston, and at Harvard University, there's so many beautiful buildings, but there's one really beautiful, like looks like a church from the outside. And they also do events there, and it's such a cool venue, and that's where they do this class in this amazing room. Um, and just learning about the concepts of technology and being a programmer, what that guy does, and all his assistants. I mean, all the assistants are also amazing. Is incredible. And so I think anybody, even if you are an experienced programmer, doing the CS50 program, I mean, you don't have to like sign up for anything. You just watch the videos and do the exercises, and it's amazing. So I think it's CS50. Is it CS50? I think it's CS50. Um, from Did I say Stanford? I meant Harvard. Now, is it Harvard or Stanford? No, it's Harvard. Yeah, yeah, totally Harvard. Um, okay. Curious if possible ingest text from a PKM, from knowledge management, like Obsidian kind of thing, to models for a second brain assistant. Yes, yes. So there are definitely tools for using models with Jade, what are you doing? Are you licking your paws again? Jade, come on. Our dog. Okay, you gotta check this out. Jade, come here, come here, come here. You're on the stream. Come on. Okay. Oh my goodness. Jade. So, this is our dog. Little Havanese, pain in the ass. And here's her paws. See that? That is not the color of her paws. This is the color of her saliva as she keeps licking. Lick, lick, lick. What's up with that? And now you're licking the bottom paw, back paw as well. Lick, lick, lick. Can't stop it. We've tried allergy meds. We've tried bitter apple. We've tried all these things. Oh, lick, lick, lick. Gonna lick that thing right off of her. Second Brain, yeah. So there's definitely plugins for Obsidian or for what are the other ones, Logseek or Notion, or there's plenty of these plugins that do try to do interesting things. I was hoping there'd be more options on the Ollama side. I did a blog post very early on in Ollama days about here's how I would build a plugin, and somebody basically took that and made a plugin, which is great, and they haven't touched it since. And there's definitely things that need to happen, and it's like a dead plugin. I wish there was more stuff. There's so much more that could be done. There's a few people that are doing some interesting videos about using Ollama, about using Obsidian. They're using LM Studio, which I think is a insane trying to. Anyway, I don't think it's as good. That's what I was going to do here, but I haven't done it an hour in. Stuff around finding notes that are similar to each other, and so therefore maybe when working on something, here are some other things that you might want to look at. And I think there's one that does those connections using ChatGPT as OpenAI to make those links. Although it's a bit weird sending all your notes up there, but anyway, there are a lot of tools for doing that. I wish there were better tools, and eventually I'm going to get so frustrated at the lack of good tools in a place that makes sense, because it's all just text anyway. I'm getting so frustrated at it that I'm just going to build one. I don't want to do that. I'm hoping somebody else is going to do it, but it's so frustrating. Concern is the AI landscape is changing so quickly. Yeah, it's changing so quickly. But at the same time, it's not. I mean, this is all the stuff that we're doing today. Almost everything about language models, large language models, the whole, all the stuff that, all the concepts in the technology are almost all from a paper, a research paper that was written in 1992, 93, somewhere on there. And then there were a few, there's been progression, a little bit of progression, and then there was a big spurt of a major paper that was 8 years ago, and that's the Attention is All You Need paper, which added one particular piece to it on top of all that work that was done in that 1992 paper. But this is 7 years. I mean, there's a lot you can learn in 7 years, and maybe there's another paper that is going to come out tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's Saturday, but come out in the next week that is going to change everything But you got time, and it's not like anything, and this world. I mean, AI research started on computers in the 1960s, and we couldn't be doing what we're doing without the research that was done in the 1960s. So I don't think there's anything that you could learn today that wouldn't be helpful for wherever it goes tomorrow. So I think there's no worry about learning the wrong thing. I guess if you spent a long time learning about one tool, like me and Ollama, that is probably Ollama's great, and hopefully it'll change, it'll keep growing and be huge. there's a lot of other competing tools. And so is Ollama the one that wins out in the end, or is something else going to win out in the end? I don't know. And even when it does, I mean, you could say that Datadog has kind of won out in the end after all the effort, because there were a lot of competitors for Datadog stuff before. But Datadog is definitely the one that's kind of grown the biggest. But there's still lots of room for all these others out there. But the concepts in Datadog that I learned 8-10 years ago are still relevant to everything I do today in dealing with AI. So I don't know if there's anything you could be learning today about AI that wouldn't be helpful for wherever it goes tomorrow, because nothing's going to change. There's no AGI coming like this year or this decade. So, I mean, it's not like some magic thing is going to happen in the next few months in September, and it's going to change everything completely. That's not going to happen. But yeah, relearn what I just yeah. I mean, it seems like I'm constantly having to relearn what I just learned. Yeah, I think that's life. Sorry, I'm always having to relearn. Thanks for the nice video. Oh, where was I? How does it compare to VLLM? I have no idea. I have no knowledge of what VLLM does. What is convert and quantize? So models start off in their original format, but the tool that's inside of LM Studio and Ollama and so many others, the actual runner is Llama CPP. Maybe that it's possible that Ollama or some other tools would separate a bit from Llama CPP at some point. I don't know, but generally that's what's running most of the models, and Llama CPP expects models to be in this GGF format. GG standing for Georgy Gurganov, who is the author of Llama CPP, and he so you need to get it into that format, and that's what convert does. And so he's in Llama CPP. There's a convert. I'm not sure if it's a Python script or a executable that you build, but there's a convert process. You run that. It takes, depending on the model, it can take anywhere from like 20 seconds to a few minutes to run that. And then there's quantize. Quantization means taking those. The original model is going to have a whole bunch of 32-bit floating point numbers. And those 32-bit floating point numbers are what are the weights in a model. And those weights can connect the different neurons that are in the model. What is a neuron? Well, it's kind of like a bit of logic that says, here's how to think about a concept. And you have these different weights, and those weights and biases are what add up to be the parameters. So there's 7 billion parameters within a model that might have 1 million or hundreds of thousands of nodes or neurons. And the weights that connect these neurons, there's multiple weights that connect multiple neurons, depending on the actual like concept that's being linked together. And those are 32-bit floating point numbers, which take up a lot of space. 32-bit floating point numbers take up, well, how many bits that are 8 in size fit in 32? 8, 16, 32, 4. So a 32-bit number takes 4 bytes. That's a lot of space. Not a lot of space on its own, but when you're dealing with 7 billion of them, it's a lot of space. So it'd take up 28 gigabytes. You know, a 7 billion parameter model should take about, I already forgot what I said, 28 gigabytes of memory to load up the entire model. Most people don't have that on their video card. And so quantization takes those 32-bit floating point numbers and bins them into, let's say with a 4-bit quantization, 4 bits is 0 to 16 or 1 to 16. And so it creates basically a box of 16 values, and it takes all the 32-bit numbers and kind of pours them into this. Or it creates groups of those 32-bit numbers, takes them all and pours them into this box, and they all fit into their slot within the bin. And then all that we have to know is all these things are in slot number 1, and all these bits are in slot number 2. And so all that we have to store is basically 1 to 16 or 0 to 15 for each of those numbers. Now you'd think, well, that's going to lose a lot of the precision in that model, but it turns out it's not the case. Even down to 2-bit models, 2-bit quantization still is incredibly good. I mean, compared to considering how much knowledge is in these models, it is shocking how good a 2-bit model can be. It's not as good as a 4-bit model, which is not as good at, well, saying it's not as, it's almost as good as the full resolution model. It's hard, and depending on what you're doing, it's hard to see much of a difference between the 4-bit and the larger ones. And then there's also K-quants, which do a slightly different way of when you pour all those 32-bit numbers into the box. K-quants basically keep a map. If there's a whole bunch of values that are over on this end and a whole bunch of values that are on this end and nothing in the middle, the K-quant will kind of spread out those two numbers out and keep a map of, okay, well, bin number 1 was going to be -1 to -0.888, but in this case, it's actually -1 to minus 0.55, a much larger area, because there's fewer of those values that fit into there. And so it can be more precise, but you need this map. And so a 4-bit quantized model with a K-quant is going to be slower because it needs to deal with this map that maps back and forth. And so a 5-bit quantization is going to be a little bit more precise, but because we're able to get those values, a more precise version of those the what the weights are, we're able to be even more. The 5-bit quantization, we're able to have more there. I get confused all the time. You're going to have better answers, but it's going to be a little bit slower. And the K-quants, the fact that it's the K-quants adds a little bit more time to that. So it's going to be even slower than just a 5-bit quantization without the K-quants. K-quants is always going to be a little bit slower. Are you slow enough to notice it? I don't know, but a little bit slower. And it's not until you go into the 8 or 2 that you really see a big difference in times. And 4-bit quantization is kind of that sweet spot of being precise enough and really great answers, but also being really fast for the system to convert to basically find the right values. Everything else, as it goes smaller, it's having to do more work to generate the answer. And as it goes bigger, it might be doing less of that work, but there's more work in dealing with the memory because it's a larger file. And that 4 is really a sweet spot of it in a lot of cases. Not everywhere, depends on the machine, but in a lot of places, it's that sweet spot of being best in performance and really good in performance of the answer, or quality of the answer, maybe is a better way to say it. What made 6? Yeah. I'd say, a lot of the stuff, what made sense 6 months ago is laughably dated, sort of. Definitely some of the videos, a video 6 months ago in this area is crazy. It's not really relevant. It was amazing, state of the art, SOTA, the state of the art of whatever. And yet now it's okay. Llama 2, whatever. Okay, so I'm got my. Where's my mouse? Why did I lose my mouse? Oh, my mouse is totally dead. Where's my cable to plug that in? It's weird. Okay. I already got the beard. I don't know. I mean, are there many red beards in? Well, maybe there are. I don't know. Try to hook up local LLMs via Ollama to Crew AI. They're really struggling with reliably handling the inputs to tools, even extremely simple tools. Interesting. I haven't played with Crew at all. I need to. That guy behind it seems to be working nonstop. I don't know how large his team is now, but I mean, they got a lot of investment, so they can hire a lot of people to build out. That'll be an interesting company to watch. See how are they going to monetize? Okay. Yeah, Andrew Ng, CS229 with Andrew Ng, I assume. I one of my like giddy moments just earlier, I think it was this week. Somebody asked somebody on Twitter X, it's always Twitter to me. Asked who should I follow on Twitter, and somebody listed Andrew Ng. Andrew Ng is amazing. He created a little company called Coursera. He's now he's at Stanford. He's just pretty amazing person. All his videos are amazing. Well, sometimes a little bit dry, but they're generally pretty good. And listed him and me on the same list. I was like, oh my goodness. It's like anytime I've seen I don't know where I was going. Anyway, I got distracted by somebody. Debjit Biswas. That's an interesting name. I don't know if I'm pronounced. Debjit. Is that like Indonesian? Or who did I know? I knew somebody whose name was Biswasjet or something like that. Who was from? Where was he from? He was. I mean, it was when I was living in the Netherlands. God, where was he from? Guyana? No, not Guyana. I don't know where he was from. But interesting name. Okay. Way to limit the frequency of CPU or GPU used by tools like LM Studio. So in my initial look at LM Studio, I saw that on the one hand, it's I don't know how people can say LM Studio is easier to use. It is a nightmare to get started with, but you do have more control. You do have easier access to the control about how to limit your machine from using too much of any particular thing. I don't know if you can control the CPU side, but you can, the layers, the number of layers from the model that got offloaded into the GPU, you can control control it both in Ollama and LM Studio. LM Studio has a nice slider for doing it, but they surface that slider for most people, which, in fact, you have to move that slider somewhere. So it's a whole lot harder to get started with, but you have more control longer term. I thought that was interesting about LM Studio. Again, I don't see how anyone could say it's easier to use, but some people say it's easier to use. I'm from Tehran. Ooh, interesting. I have a startup company in fintech. I want to know. I want you to know. I want that I am an awesome human being. I don't think so. Come on. I mean, I think doing a fintech startup in, yeah, okay. I was about to say in a country like Iran, but that is my is it ethnocentric? No. My assuming that's me assuming, oh well, I'm in the US, so therefore I'm in the center of the world, or I'm the best place. And it's easy to get into that place where you think that wherever you are is the best place to be, or the worst place to be, depending on where you are. And but my understanding is that it would be a hard place to build, you have to be careful. But I guess you always have to be careful. You can't say stupid things in a lot of places. But I feel like if I were building a company in Tehran around fintech, I would say something stupid and I would be in jail. But so I think you're an awesome human being. That's my long way of it. There's no direct answers with me. Sorry. Avoid overheating. So are you seeing overheating on an M2 CPU and GPU? What is overheating? Ads inserted. What's that mean? Oh, ads. Yes. Sorry, if you may be seeing a movie, not a movie, an ad. It's interesting. So on my display, I see that there was I had a little pop-up that's saying ad inserted. I was like, what do you mean ad inserted? So because of monetization, monetization is on, so ads get inserted if you're not, what is the YouTube Plus? I think it's YouTube Premium, YouTube Plus, whatever it's called. I pay like, I don't know, I forget what I pay, $15 a month, $18 a month to get rid of the ads. So I never see ads. And then I sometimes turn on a different browser and I'm like, what are these ads things? What's going on here? So I just got the notification that an ad showed for some of you. I'm curious. I'm always curious how many people buy that so they don't see the ads. I don't know how somebody could watch YouTube and see the ads. I'm glad they see the ads because that's how I get my money. So obviously a lot of people see ads, but oh my God, that's frustrating to see ads. Okay, do you think models get dumber when we train an instruct model from the original text completion model? They get dumber. I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, you're not training, you're fine-tuning. And so that basically means taking those original weights and just like tweaking them a little bit based on your kind of information so that it may already know what you're feeding it, but it's brings it a little bit more top of mind, so it's able to answer those questions a little bit better. And so for the things that you've trained or you're fine-tuned it on, your particular subject area, it becomes smarter, but therefore it has to become, I mean, it's not like it's expanding knowledge. It's not going to expand the knowledge it has. It's just going to refocus that knowledge specifically on your stuff and potentially make anything else less intelligent, I think. Hi there, from Artur. Hi there. Do you feel I do feel LM Studio is pretty heavy on CPU achievements. Yeah, the fact that every time I go into LM Studio, I have to say, yes, I want you to turn on Apple Silicon GPU. Like, what? Okay, initially, when that was in the version of LM Studio before Ollama even started. Before we started LM Studio, you'd have to check that checkbox. And I thought, wow, that's stupid. Why do you have to check that? I mean, the system knows that the GPU is there, so nobody's going to want to use this without the GPU. It's so painfully slow without the GPU. So obviously turn on the GPU and use as many layers as we can. You're a computer, so you can figure out how many layers will fit on the GPU based on the amount of memory, so automatically fill the GPU with the amount of memory. But in LM Studio, from my initial looking and looking at a few videos, you have to turn that on, and you have to draw that slider to say how many layers, and so therefore you need to understand what layers are in order to just, and yes, you can swipe it over to the max, but what's the implication? Well, I was shocked when I saw that was still the default, that you have to turn on Metal on the Mac to use LM Studio, and I know it used to be the case that you had to do that every single time. Hopefully now when I close LM Studio and I reopen it up again, I don't have to do that again, because that would just be insanity. Why? It's been a while. Anyway, have I found my tribe yet? I don't know. No. I mean, well, maybe. Maybe I have. I mean, I think I turned this on an hour and 16 minutes ago, and within 2 minutes, 10 people were here. So does that mean I found my tribe? I guess so. How big does a tribe need to be? I don't know. I want to watch your review about anything LLM. Yeah. A lot of people want me to cover anything LLM. And I've been reluctant. Yeah, okay, so with Open Web UI, I think is an awesome product. It's got some problems though. And so I want to point out those problems that I see as a way to help other people understand that, that problem that they're running into is not just for them, but also so that the developers can see, okay, well, that's an area that maybe we're not thinking about and we need to focus on to make better. But generally, it's a good product. And then I did one on Misty, and generally, it's a good product. There's some problems with it, and some problems that I didn't even notice when I did it, about how, it does embed, I knew it embedded Ollama inside it to make it really easy to get started with. But because I could point to, you have it use my already existing models, I assumed it was using my copy of Ollama, but it's not. It's using its embedded version of Ollama. And one of the updates coming in the next version or two is the ability to link to an external Ollama service, which will be great. But generally, I really like Misty, but it's got some problems. And so I want people who are using it to know those problems. And I want the developer behind Misty to also see, here's a problem I'm experiencing, and maybe they can make it better. But then there's tools that, I try them and I was like, I can't see anything of any value in here. I mean, okay, as a front end, is that good enough? And so when there's something that's just not interesting, at least with my background and my perspective into this stuff, I don't find it interesting. Should I make a video about it? When all I can do is like pick out the few little good things amongst this. I don't know if that's a good, I don't know. So recently I did a video on yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Put out a video where I was using a tool and I encountered problems, and the problems weren't really because of the tool. I think it's a great tool, and I want to do a video about that tool, but highlighting the problems that aren't related to that tool seemed wrong to associate to that tool, since it's not really the tool's fault. And so I made sure I created the video, but removed the name of that tool so that it doesn't get associated with it's a bad tool. Because I think for what it does, It's amazing. It's a really great tool. And then there are others that I don't get as excited about, and I want to be excited about about content that I make. I making content about something I don't find interesting. Forgot to drink water. Making content about stuff I don't find interesting isn't interesting for me. And so that's why some of these tools that people have recommended, I haven't done a video about, but maybe I should. Anyway, and I can find the good stuff. I want to be, with any video, I want to focus on the good stuff. If I don't have anything good to say about somebody, I mean, what did everybody's mother's, if you don't have something good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all, something like that. I mean, I want to say good stuff about things, because every product out there was written by somebody who cared deeply, had a problem, and they cared deeply enough about that problem to create a solution. And that solution is their baby, even if they know that's not the best thing in the world, it's still their creation. And for me to just slam it for no good reason, just because I don't like the product doesn't mean it's not a good product. And I would be afraid of putting out a video where I suggest it's bad. And so that's why that's why I have. But then again, there's lots of products I haven't done videos on. Doesn't mean they're all bad. It means I haven't found them yet. So it's, I don't have a good answer. But thank you for the question, Ayrton Maradona. Maradona. Like wasn't there a soccer player? Maradona? I worked at a camera shop where I grew up. I grew up on an island off the coast of Miami, an island called Key Biscayne, Florida. And I worked at the camera shop there, at Bristol's Camera. It was there for eons, not eons, but it was there open for a long time. And one of the guys there, Manny, he was all about Maradona. Yeah. So, okay. Oh, thank you, from Brazil. It's lovely. My sister used to love going to Brazil. She would go to a town. What was it called? She'd always describe how hard it was to get there. God, what was the name of that town? Hold on, I gotta look it up. Where's the search window on here? Moving my mouse. Okay. How come I can't find file search? I know you're not seeing anything. How do I search for that? Oh, there we go. Brasilia. Okay. It was way up top. She had to go to... It involved several flights and then a long drive. Oh, yeah. So she'd go up to Fortaleza and then drive like 3 hours south, 4 hours south. Can't remember where that was. Anyway, she loved going there. I don't know if she still goes there. Ollama would default auth at least some bearer token. Oh, I missed the first part of that. I don't see the beginning of that question. Ollama would default auth. So there's no authentication, no authorization on Ollama. Mostly because it was designed as not as a server product, but as something you run on your local machine. And so it should be, any authentication, authorization just doesn't make sense on something that's running locally. I think, but that said, running more than one model at a time generally doesn't make sense, or responding to more than one request at a time generally doesn't make sense on a local machine, although sometimes it does, if you're running a coding model, but also want to ask a question at the same time, or you've got some back-end process that's doing stuff with a model. You want that to run at the same time as another model you're running more interactively. And so that does make sense even in the scenario where how Ollama was designed. But that said, the Ollama team always had the idea of eventually it would be great to be on a server, and that means having more control over authentication and authorization as well, or maybe that's always something external. I don't know. And also or better queuing and prioritization. It has now the concurrency, so that's great. So maybe, concurrency is that first stage, and maybe more of those types of things will come in the future. I don't know. What is the cheapest hardware to run unquantized 70B model? Unquantized 70B. I don't know. So unquantized 70, so you're looking at needing 280 gigabytes of VRAM. I don't know. Unquantized 70B, yeah, you're looking at incredibly expensive. So what, a A100 or 4090 with, do they come with 80 gigs or 40 gigs? You're looking at many of the 10 of those, 9 of those, and those are like $2,000. So that's $18,000. I don't know why you'd want to. I can't think of any reason you'd want to run unquantized model. You are not really gaining, and I can't really think of any reason you'd want to run a 70B model versus a smaller model. Yeah, it's a little bit better, but not enough to justify the slowness. So I don't know. Cheapest hardware is, if you're asking about cheapest, you can't afford it. Misty doesn't seem like an open source project. Yeah, it's not. But I don't see that as being a choice by the developer, whether the developer wants to do open source or not. I don't mind. That doesn't. I'm not going to choose a product because it's open source. There's plenty of tools. I couldn't do the work that I do without using a tool like Final Cut Pro, which is totally not open source. And I use an OS, Mac OS, and I've done Linux in the past. My first time with Linux was back in I want to say 1991. Probably the second post that Linus did to the newsfeed to was it IRC or and I saw it and I downloaded. It was like, I don't know, it was an SLS distribution. So it must not, SLS was a little bit later, but initially did that initial download and, it took forever. But eventually, some things like SLS and LSL, I think, also came out. And that would take me like a whole month to download. And so I've have a lot of experience with Linux, especially early on. But I don't see how open source, yay or nay, it's not really it doesn't make an impact on my decision of whether a tool is any good or not. When you make your videos, how do you get the coding graphics on screen? What software do you use? Yeah, so the last one I did, not the last one, the one before last, I was a little bit different. So the one I did on Monday or Tuesday was, what was I doing? I was talking about, I was doing the concurrent streams, or concurrent, asking the model, multiple questions at the same time. Is that the one I did? I think that was it. And I had some code in there, and that one was different than all the other ones I've done. I don't like it as much, but then again, I love it. So on that one, I just used VS Code. with a black background. And when you add it into whatever if anytime you have a black background with other color letters or other color drawings, and you add it into whether it's Final Cut Pro or Premiere or even any image editing tools, and you set the blend mode to be add, I think it is. It basically just adds anything with color onto the screen and makes the black go away. And so that's what I was using there. And then I've got a Keyboard Maestro macro that will take whatever's in the clipboard and spit it out on the line as if you're typing, but without mistakes, which is not how I type. I type with mistakes. So that types out, and I've got a specific profile in VS Code that has all the plugins and all the IntelliSense turned off. That way you don't get all this like stuff dropping down, and turn off all automatically matching brackets and stuff like that, so that it spits out exactly what's in the clipboard. And that was pretty nice, but I think I need to practice doing that a bit more before I really like it. Or I take the text that I want to show on the screen, I paste it into a title in Final Cut, and I either just rely on it typing out using the text text behavior of typing out, or if there's a section I want to show up 2 seconds later, I make another title and add that, and then I make another title, and so it's very arduous process, but it looks a whole lot better. It looks great. I think it looks great, but it's a lot of work. So much for doing my LM Studio look. I need to, if I'm gonna do something, I need to just do it. Oh, uh-oh. Did I stop? No, I saw a weird slowdown. I don't know. Yeah, so that's how I do it. It is very informative. Thank you, Chris Bell. Do you use Jupyter Notebooks? No, I don't. What sort of things do you use them for? I don't use them. I don't see any benefit to using Jupyter Notebooks. I've never seen value in Jupyter Notebooks. All they do is, okay, they add some comments to the code, but you can just have comments in the code. And they make it so that now I've got, in order to run anything, I have to run several things rather than just running the program. I just want to run the program. Don't make me like click, 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 click. I can't imagine. I don't understand why Jupyter Notebooks have become popular. They're garbage. And then you require all this extra infrastructure to run the notebooks. You have to install some other piece of software to get them to even run, or you're hosting it some. It just adds too much complexity. I don't know why people want to add more complexity to a complex topic, and it doesn't offer any. I don't see any benefit that offers. Yes, it has an explanation, but you can have comments in code. I mean, Brev, I really like brev.dev, and I did a video about that, but their main thing is Jupyter Notebooks. That's their thing. And I guess I'm not the target audience. And some people love it. Great. I just don't get it. I missed your question. I'm sorry. I'm new to AI, but I do know a bit about Python programming. Where can I start to learn about AI and get into, just do it. Fine tuning. Fine tuning is something I have not done myself either. So I found that some of the better tools, better ways of learning about fine tuning is actually on. I've really liked the tutorials on brev.dev's website. So brev.dev, I don't know, somewhere there's a blog, and they've got, because they're also their service is hosting these Jupyter notebooks, and there you can learn. So okay, there's the value of Jupyter notebooks, learning about what it's actually doing. Except often people will just kind of gloss over the hard stuff and think, I'm not going to explain this because I don't understand it myself. But they have a lot of tutorials about doing fine tuning. And for some reason, all the fine tuning relies on these Jupyter notebooks, which again is the worst way you can run these. Anyway, so I don't think I know that fine tuning is a hard thing to do. One of the areas initially that we thought at Ollama will like automate and make this just easier. There's no reason it needs to be this hard. No reason. It just requires a little bit of effort for a developer to automate this. Yes, there's a lot of variables, but computers are pretty good at variables. And so, yeah, I don't. I opened so I opened through Cloudflare Tunnel and access over internet, at least a bearer token. Yeah, okay, I see that. But it's not something that we offer. I say we. I still say we. It's not something that Ollama offers because it's so easy to add, to have another proxy in front that adds that security. By default, it should not be there because most people are running it locally on their system. And so it's just not necessary. But if you are doing something outside of that norm, then yes, you should be able to add that. All right, let's see. They'll ask my mother. Did I skip over anything? Did I skip over anything else? Misty, not sure what kind of telemetry they're sending. It detects as virus on Windows. Yeah. So with that, it's annoying that tools like the virus checking software works the way it does. It seems that in order to not be detected as a virus, if you're doing interesting things, you need to have influence at Microsoft, and somehow Ollama has influence, some sort of influence at Microsoft, because for a long time Ollama showed up as a virus in the Windows detection or virus detection or Defender, is it, or whatever it is, and it was only after we were able to exert influence. It was only after Ollama was able to exert influence on the Microsoft team that went away. Not technical issues; it was all a relationship issue. So that person doesn't have that relationship with somebody at Microsoft. Yeah, it's scary, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, if you don't trust it, don't use it. Great. But and yeah, Tailscale might. Yeah, I think Tailscale is awesome. Tailscale makes all the. There's so much stuff that you need to do to secure a system if you're going to put it online, especially if it's just for you, not for anyone else, just for you. And they do all this stuff to make it really easy. And so you can trust that you are doing it really right. From Ginto Sakata, LM Studio is really slow compared to Ollama. So I was thinking, well, this is weird. I must be doing something wrong. I would download the exact same model in LM Studio, the exact same thing. I have all the right settings. I do the same thing on Ollama, which by the download. I mean, God, LM Studio, come on, fix your downloads. But anyway, you download the model, and then you try to run it, and it's just slower. I mean, like 40 tokens per second in LM Studio versus 60, and I mean, like 50% slower. 50%? Yeah. I think that's right. 50% slower in LM Studio versus running it in Ollama. And I was getting that consistently across many models. It is shocking that people are okay with that. And then the download. Oh my God, it's relying on Hugging Face downloads, which is slow. I mean, they're trying to scale up. They're solving a different problem, and they're able to scale out so much bigger than I think Ollama does right now. Although they made some changes recently, uh, deal with a much bigger scale. But that means you have to download the download from Hugging Face is just so much slower, depending on your it depends on your network connection. But if you have a decent network connection, it is so much slower to download from Hugging Face, and therefore through LM Sudo, because LM Sudo is just using Hugging Face, so much slower to download from there versus um, the service that Ollama created. It's all but it's just so much slower to download to get started with. But oh, my stream went down. No, it's on. Okay, weird. It looked like the stream stopped and then the stream came back. I don't know. I saw lights flash on my side, but it seems good now. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully this is interesting for you. I'm just reading the chat. Testing Tailscale now. CF has better servers and speed. Yeah, maybe. Better servers and speed. But I think the big benefit of Tailscale is just they make something that can be hard really insanely easy. And CF, Jade, are you licking your paws again? No, you're not. You're just sorry, dog licking paws. I hear that lick sound, but she was just moistening her lips. Oh, you caught sight of my my pajamas there. Because yes, I'm still in my pajamas, and I'm wearing a jacket, and it's really hot. Oh my god, my shoulders are hurting. We went kayaking yesterday. So on Bainbridge Island, I live on Bainbridge Island, and we did kayaking. Where did we go? We went to Fort Ward, down the south side of the island, across Rich Passage. Rich Passage is amazing. There's I live on this island, Bainbridge Island, and there's this place called Rich Passage, and Rich Passage is where the ferries will go, but it's also like the main deep waterway for ships to go through if they're going further along. And one of the places they're going to go further along is to Bremerton. I think that's where the route to Bremerton. And that's where one of the big naval bases is for the U.S. And I think it's something like if this area is not the biggest, it's the second biggest cluster of nuclear weapons and nuclear missiles, nuclear systems in the U.S. Maybe amongst the biggest in the world. So I mean, if there's if there's a big war going on, I'm first to go because I'm like in the middle of so much nuclear weaponry. Not really a good thing, but yeah. But it's amazing at Rich Passage when you see like the Nimitz, major aircraft carriers go through this pretty thin waterway. It's amazing to see. Anyway, we were kayaking right there last night, and so my shoulder's a little sore getting that jacket off. All right, where are we on comments? I want to delve more into didn't we just learn that models, you can often spot when it's a model generating the text because they use the word delve. That was like the big analysis. They use the word delve. So NXT Malteser, you use the word delve. So therefore, you must be a bot. I've used the word delve too, so I guess I'm a bot too. I currently run it on my laptop with a 2060. I manage, but as I'm a home labber, was thinking on adding Ollama host so my PCs can connect, but I do not wish to work out or for an RTX card. Are there any old gen server cards that are known to do a good job with Ollama? So I think my Streamlight is flashing. Am I that's a few last an old IoT podcast. Stacy Higginbotham lives there too. I don't know Stacy Higginbotham. Okay. Yeah, my internet seems to be blinking every now and then. That we lost internet completely for like a full day, like the whole island, and many of the towns north of this island lost internet um, a few days ago. Spent $30 yesterday finding. Okay, yeah. So what I mean, okay. Let me open up. Let's go to. What happens if I do MacBook Pro here? Nope, that's not it. Okay, I need to press a button somewhere. Where's my super source button? Where's my mouse? There we go. Nope, not that one screen. Nope, not that screen. Okay, there we go. And you'll need to look at my map of Brazil and Fortaleza. So let's close that out. I'm gonna open up eBay. I have a hard time believing that there are many. Well, actually, let's just go to Apple. And getting a iFind, getting a Mac Mini, $600. Well, I'm actually going to go with the M2 Pro. How much does this cost? So $12.99 for a brand new M2 Pro or eBay Mac Mini. I'd really even just go with an M1. Can you do a Pro? M1, 8 gigs. Let's see, can I say 16? What's the biggest? The 32 gigs. I'd rather 64, but it's a gig. 32 gigabytes. So 16 gigs. But I guess on the Mac Minis, I think they're user upgradable memory. I can't remember. But you're looking at like, if it is user upgradable, are these Pros? M1 Pro is kind of what I'd like to see. I can't remember. Anyway, you're not looking at a lot of money for a Mac Mini. Or get a MacBook Pro, but for a server kind of situation, I totally get like a Mac Mini. And it's hard to beat the price performance ratio for a Mac. For a long time, Macs have always been, there's the Apple tax or whatever. But nowadays, it's hard to beat what the Macs provide for these AI kind of workloads. So, yeah, I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's go back to that. Oh, is that what? Oh, I need to have a button for super source. Okay, sorry, unrelated to this. Don't feel like you have to share, but you've mentioned a lot that you are a founding member of the Ollama team, and you're not. Curious what happened. Yeah. not here. If we ever meet in person, I can tell you. I love Ollama. Oh, I lost my place. Makes Ollama. Yeah, okay. What else OS do you recommend for LLMs in general? Running Ollama. I think the Mac. Mac with Apple Silicon, it's hard to beat. For you, it's 50%, but in my case, RTX 3050 LM Studio is like 2 to 3 times slower than Ollama. That's amazing. Tokens per second wise, yeah. Stream, by the way, you're doing great. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Bainbridge. Okay, yeah. So Kevin Toffel. Stacy Higginbotham. I don't know Stacy. But maybe you should introduce us. I don't know. There are a lot of people on pretty interesting place, and interesting, the kind of people that you see. I've got a neighbor, not this neighbor, not the one up above, but the one above that. So three doors up. The story I've heard is that he was hired by Bezos directly to start up a team. He still goes. Oh, by the way, he still goes to work. He goes to still works at Amazon. Goes in every day. Amazing. He was hired to start a team to experiment with the idea: is it possible to sell more than just books? Yeah, so that's he's right there. Yeah, some interesting people. In fact, we bought this house, but before we bought this house, we were looking at a different house further up on Bainbridge, on the kind of northern end. It would have been a much darker house because it was surrounded by trees. It apparently was owned by the principal of the local high school. A few owners earlier. And that principal used to like to buzz the island in his helicopter. I don't know how many school principals owned helicopters, but this guy had a helicopter. And so if you look at a map of Bainbridge Island, there is one helipad marked by the FAA, and that was their house, the house that we were looking at buying. But the current owners, when we were looking at, I think they've actually did sell it. But the owner of that house started up a little company. You may have heard of it. Got sold to Cisco. It was a little product called WebEx. He created WebEx. So that's just normal people. People create cool companies. Okay, not everybody loves. Okay, not very few people like WebEx, but he created it. It was awesome. Who else is the guy who created PageMaker? Was on the island, has amazing, does amazing stuff here. There's so many cool and interesting people on the island. Okay. Blips, but fine. It's so dramatic. Maybe I add the blips for. Oh, and then it blipped. I don't know what's going on with the internet today. On anything on the RX 580 4 gig graphics card? I don't know. The way to find out is, I need to find the right button for this. Okay, so if I go to ollama.com and I go to GitHub, and then scroll down here to docs. I think it's under docs, and then GPU. And here, what was it? RX 580. That's is that AMD or is that? Because don't they like both use R and X and no, that looks like oh, it is a so is RX 580 on here? I don't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not. There's this override thing you can do with AMD. I don't really understand it because I don't have to. But I'm pretty sure that's not a. It would be an RTX with NVIDIA. So I don't see it listed, so I wouldn't buy it. But if you already have it, it's something you could try. But I don't understand how to do this override. Maybe it's as easy as doing an environment variable. I haven't tried it. I don't know. All right, let's see where we go from here. Arcom stopped supporting. Yeah, I mean, the problem with these anything older than 4 years. I mean, 4 years is ancient nowadays. That's somebody was asking about learning new technologies and being scared about learning something that's not going to be relevant in a few years. I think you can learn anything and it's going to be relevant for a long time to come. But if you buy a graphics card that's 3 years old, if it's working today, there's a good chance it won't be working next year. So it's I mean, there's a small window of support, and that's one of the I don't know is so an M1 from 3 years ago is still a really pretty powerful machine. I'm getting on Llama 3, I think I'm getting like 60 tokens per second, something like that. And a 3-year-old card from NVIDIA, I mean, is it going? Are they still supported? I don't know what the on here on this list. I don't know how old these cards are. I guess probably these cards down here are the oldest, I assume. But how old are those cards? I don't know. Let's see. Where we go. Good morning from Pong Pong. Here and from China. Can you take a test on new models from DeepSeek V2? Okay. I will. Okay, is there a way to measure computer resources usage using Ollama and plan the upscale based on users' concurrency? So I don't know of any. Yeah, I mean, you can totally measure computer resources, but it's nothing to do with Ollama. It's just going to be like on the Mac, there's Activity Monitor. I think it's Activity Monitor, or on Linux, HTOP, NTOP, all those tops. I think there's a NX top or NXI top or something like that for doing just looking at how NVIDIA is being used. But there's a lot of things in there. I don't know if there's anything in any. I know there is a monitoring endpoint that is by default not enabled in Ollama, and there's like some flag you can turn on to get it, but I think you have to build it yourself to get that. And I know there was a pretty recent PR on exposing that for people, because I think that'll be important as it goes into server usage. But I don't know of anything that shows metrics on how many concurrent users are there. And so I think at the moment it's up to you as a developer who's building a system that can deal with that to record how many people are working with the system right now. And right now, although it supports concurrency, there's no prioritization of saying, this model is more important than this, or these users are more important than those users. So it's still early days on concurrency. And I think monitoring that will be more important. But I don't know of any options there. So it's something that you really need to do yourself. Yeah, what is up with this lockdown GPUs? I don't know about that. I know they're looking at GPUs or something. I saw the news story on, I don't know, Hacker News or something, but I don't know anything about that. Always enjoy your content. Wondering what your thoughts are on OpenAI's new model spec publishing regarding AI safety. I don't know. I I have no idea. I assume they're doing something else stupid. I don't know. I know nothing. Yeah, the M1. I mean, this machine I have right here is a M1 Max MacBook Pro with 64 gigs, so I can run the 70 billion parameter model, and it works just fine. I don't want to because it's slow. I mean, it's relatively slow. Like, how slow is it? It's if I open up, let's make this bigger and bump this up. I run Ollama, run Llama 3 70B. Let's go full screen and move me down to the bottom right corner. Okay, and we'll bump up the resolution a bit more. Okay. And so this, is, again, is a, I don't know how old this machine is. Let's see. About this Mac. 2021 16-inch Mac. Taking a while to load. I don't think I'm doing much on here. I'm definitely not streaming from here. The stream is being run for my A10 Mini. But it's definitely taking a long time. Okay, there we go. So let's set verbose so we can see what the how fast it's doing. And then my favorite question is, why is the sky blue? And so that feels pretty slow to me. And I don't like using 70B models because, I mean, I can, but I don't like it because it feels pretty slow. Oh my God, am I actually getting close to the end of the chat? Oof. Okay. Okay, and then my fans just came on. So it's definitely working a little hard, but it's pretty hard to hear the fan. And it's 8 tokens per second, 7.89. So that's for the actual generation. That doesn't include evaluating the prompt. It's purely about generating that answer is 7.89 tokens per second, which I find to be too slow to actually use for anything realistic. Now, an M1 Studio, M1 Max Studio, whatever. Oh, M1 Ultra, is that the right thing? It's a lot faster than this. All right, NV top for NVIDIA, thank you. For COVID, I had to close my shop and I have a couple cards. Like, cool. Yeah, yeah. I hope the government doesn't go after open source models, claiming it's not safe. Do you know how the how the team priority on server version? I don't know. I have no idea. I know it's always been important. I mean, the team is made of two of the two guys that kind of created the team of us. They had worked on like the first front end tool for Docker that really ever existed. Got acquired by Docker, and they were the product managers for Docker Desktop because it was essentially their tool called Kitematic, and that became what is now Docker for Desktop. And then one of the other core members of the team created his company was acquired and by Docker, and while he was at Docker, he started up Docker Hub, which it's kind of hard to imagine how does Docker run without Docker Hub, but or at least the current version of Docker Hub. He created it and maintained it. He was the product manager and got sold off to Mirantis, who was part of Mirantis for a while. It's interesting. All right. Oh my God, I got to the end of the chat. Whew. This means that I can finally do my original intention of looking at LM Studio. Ollama is rocks. I assume that's Ollama rocks, not is a bucket of rocks that is slow and pulling me down, making me drown. How is my coffee? Probably very cold by now. Any progress on PDF and chunking strategies? No. I every now and then I look. It's like I really need to. I talked about doing this at some point, and then it frustrates me to no end. Like, oh, how come these tools are so bad? So what that's referring to is back a few videos ago, I did a video about RAG. I was like showing how to get started with RAG as a Python developer, Python and a TypeScript developer. And so, obviously the most popular document format for adding into RAG is probably going to be PDF. And PDF is often what's easiest to get access to if you're downloading from, maybe it's a US government thing, you're downloading PDFs or any other government entity, it's usually a PDF. Every time I've said that, there's usually somebody that says, well, what document are you trying to get? And it's like something from, I don't know, FDA, whatever, and they're able to find, based on the URL name, the original text file. And so the text file is going to be better. But anyway, you need a PDF is going to be easier to get most often, but that PDF has to be formatted just right. Don't do any weird fonts in there. Don't do any weird subscript, superscript. Don't do any math formulas. As soon as you do that, then the PDF, the file gets weird, and it's no longer just, if there's 5 words in succession, those 5 words aren't always next to each other in the output from the PDF if you just take the text from the PDF. And sometimes the PDF is just, TIFF images inside the PDF, in which case you have to do OCR. There's no option for text, pulling out text. But often, if your text is 2 columns, there's plenty of papers on archive.org that are 2-column text. And if like the right column starts a little higher because there's some sort of bigger text on the left side, you often see, the first words in the second column is the beginning of the sentence, and then it goes to the first column or the first line in the first column and continues, and then goes over to the second column and continues, and then goes back to so it's all messed up. And so if you have the perfectly formatted PDF that is just the simplest, no creativity in the PDF, then yeah, maybe the PDF to text options work. But I downloaded, like 10 PDFs at random from Archive. When I say archive, it's arxiv.org. And I just downloaded 10 at random, and like 3 or 4 of them were 2 columns, or a weird image at the top of or the middle of the page. And so when you do text to PDF, whether you're using PyPDF or PyMoo PDF or other ones that are on for Node.js, it always just messes up the text. And so, okay, the 4 words together make sense, but if you look at anything bigger than, even as big as a sentence, it just doesn't make any sense. And there's not really a good solution. You can do an OCR, but sometimes that doesn't even do a good job of pulling out. It's up to you as a human to kind of make sense of where things are. And so it really needs to be a combination of OCR and model, and maybe OCR and model that happens to be a lava model, so it does some variation of OCR in it. And maybe that's but then if you're doing all that, well, sometimes it's better to do the just text to PDF for simple PDFs. And so you need a much more complicated system that is managing, okay, understanding what is the kind of PDF that we're looking at, and then deciding, Jade, what are you doing? Stop licking your paws. Jade, why do you need to make your paw black? Your paw is probably soaking wet. You need some pets. Okay, you get pets. Okay. Oh, that dog is licking her paws. So infuriating. She's, I don't know why. Have any advice on trying to find pain points to solve for a field you don't have specific knowledge in? No, I don't. Find somebody else who's charging less than you and who has expertise there, and make profit just by, I don't know. I don't have any answers. I have no answers. I can't even make up something that sounds good there. Simple UI option that doesn't require Docker. Yeah, I think Misty is a great option that doesn't require Docker. That said, you have to be okay with, some people don't like that it's not open source, or I don't really care about that part. Some people don't like that it's on Windows, it seems to have issues with a false positive, but okay. And it's embedding Ollama, which is really nice because it's embedding it. But you have to be okay with that. Oh, another one, which I think depends on what you want. Simple means different things to different people. If you just want a UI where you can ask a model things, and you don't need to, but you want to maybe even do RAG, a RAG kind of question against a document, then I think one of my favorite tool at the moment for that simple kind of experience is Page Assist. It's not an install through Docker or even Electron. It's an extension for Chrome. There are some problems with it. It does do like a Google search ahead of time and provide that to the model, which is not that great. And it also does, there's something else it's like main feature. The reason it's called Page Assist is that it can bring a panel in to ask questions of the current page, but that feature is totally lame and doesn't really work well. So ignore the main feature of it and just look at what it does really well, which is it's a simple UI for a model, and it's amazing. It's called Page Assist. Don't just search for page new word assist, because you'll get a feature in Procreate, but Page Assist. And that's the one that I've found most recently that is awesome. So that's a simple Ollama UI. It's web-based, but not like a web server. So you can't have other people You can't host it for other people. It's going to be in your browser. But I think it's really cool. It's it rather than using some of these tools we use Chroma, so therefore SQLite. They're storing everything in Chrome storage, like the browser Chrome storage, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, it's just a really neat tool. You may have noticed I beeped out a tool in a recent video where I talked about stuff that was outside of not the tool's fault. That was the tool. I think it's an awesome tool. Just not, I was trying to talk about something else in that video. But there's a new video coming out on Tuesday or Monday, that'll go into Page Assist. I think Page Assist is awesome. Yeah, the thing it misses so many things in the PDF. It's better to read the PDFs instead. Yeah, totally. If you can, I think the best option is either work really hard to find the original source of that PDF. Often you can find the source if you look hard enough. Some people don't want to look. That's fine. I mean, it's fine not to say, I don't want to put in the effort to look for the original PDF, because usually the PDF, the source is around somewhere. You just need to like send an email to the author to get the source. But sometimes the source isn't available because they're trying to obfuscate the source text and want you to read the PDF. There are good reasons to only want to distribute a PDF because it's not as easily copy pastable. But then if you do a OCR manually, like with some application, you do the OCR and you kind of scan through it to make sure all the text is right based on what you're looking at in the PDF. Then you've got a new version of the text, and you can bring that into. It's a lot of work. I haven't seen any way to get rid of all the work required to automate getting text out of PDF. You're stuck with doing the work at some point. Either you find that original document, or you spend all the work converting. Again, sometimes the PDF is perfect and it's just like simple text, but I haven't seen any of those on archive because they're always complicated. Now, one place that's really interesting for, like Lava models is when it gets down to an image, being able to say, okay, for this image, describe this image, so that I don't need to store the image. I can just store the description. I think that's a pretty cool idea. Okay, what are the new Lava models in the most recent Ollama update? I don't know. Let's go take a look. Oops. Why am I not able to do that? Okay, arc. So what's the latest? The latest is 1.34. The images, the logos, the pictures are always so great. They are all, so one of the two, I mentioned the two original creators of the team, Michael Chang and Jeff Morgan. So Michael's wife does all the artwork, and they're great. They're always amazing. There's so many great new ones. Okay, so Lava Phi. Oh, interesting. Lava Llama. I don't know. I haven't played with these. Let's open up that one and that one. Let's cool. I have not played with it. So this is one of my one of our points of contention with Ollama. I really wanted, if you look at I shouldn't do this, but if you look at, but since I'm here, if you look at the original Ollama 2 models, the README has a specific format. Looks like it's been updated a little bit, but it has a specific format, little description. here's how to use a CLI, here's how to use the API, here's the memory requirements, here's the model variants. You used to have a chart that showed all the model variants and which ones are similar. It was decided that we should not do that, and so it should not have the same format, which I thought was really a great idea, and now instead has just a description written by somebody that doesn't provide a lot of detail. I much prefer having a lot of detail, but I'm no longer part of the. Okay, so new lava models. Okay, a PDF with a bunch of Haskell code. What's the best way to keep the context of the formulas? I don't know. I don't have an answer. A PDF with any sort of code in it is hard. There's no. Jade, stop licking your paws. Come on over here. What are you doing? You need me to hold you? Come on. Over here. Over here. Hey. Come on. What are you doing? Don't back away. Jade, come over here. Come here. Jade, stop backing away. Jade, you need to stop licking that paw. Oh my God. How? What are you doing? Lick, lick, lick. Anybody has any tricks for getting this dog to stop licking his paw? Her paw. Sorry. I called you a boy. Ugh. So frustrating. Oh, so sorry. Yeah, it's frustrating. PDFs suck. I was trying LangChain summarization on concalls, tried all three methods, couldn't get it to grab all the good details. Yeah, LangChain, for some things, it's great. If your project is complex enough to need it. But for a lot of simpler things, there's no benefit to using LangChain or Ollama Index. They're amazing projects, and what they've done, especially considering the time at the time when they were developed, both of them came out when, your only choice was use the OpenAI API, and all the different models added, all the different services added tweaks to that. And so just dealing with that, and they were all bad hard to use APIs. Yeah, it made sense that you needed to use something like LangChain. Ollama tried to make the API just a lot simpler, and so I think it's much easier to work with. But so I think anytime somebody says, "Well, I'm trying to do this simple thing, relatively simple thing in LangChain," often try to do it without LangChain, because you can probably do it easier without LangChain. But summarization is interesting. It's always an interesting, it depends on how big the text is that you're trying to summarize. If it's bigger than the context size of the model, then you need to do some creative things in there. So one of the, I guess, kind of obvious ways, I thought it was obvious ways to deal with that is to split up the document into pieces. Maybe you're able to look for the top, how many top headings are there, and so split it up based on those headings, or split it up based on paragraphs and summarize each of the paragraphs, or summarize each of the sections, and then summarize the summarizations. Once you can figure out where are the logical places to break up that document, summarize each of those pieces, and then summarize the summaries, and that will often do a better job of and that may be what LangChain is trying to do. I know early on LangChain was doing things that were just broken with Ollama. I think they changed that, but that was why I think raw got added in the prompt, because they're trying to add their own system prompt as well. Yeah.
Trying for anything LLM with Ollama. Yep. I had a long discussion earlier about why I haven't done a review of anything LLM. Okay, some people love it. Can you suggest an implementation method? Off topic. The topic of this live stream 2.5 hours ago was I was going to look at LM Studio. Everything is off topic. You're not off. I mean, you're no more off topic than everything else we've talked about for the last 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. There's still 57 people here for 2.5 hours. Apologize. Okay, can you suggest an implementation method to preserve session memory when using curl? Curl and not really. I mean, so that's hard. So the with curl, I mean, you it's up to you to manage that yourself. It was a little bit easier with if you're using the generate, and so there's two endpoints. There's generate and chat. Chat, you have to manage the whole memory yourself, but you can manage the memory yourself. With generate, you can't do anything. So you call the generate endpoint with your question, whatever your prompt is, and it spits out an answer and also spits out a context. And that context is is it embedding or vector? It's a vector of some sort. I'm not sure what it actually is, but you can copy that and set that as a context for the next message, and now you have all your memory. So it's really easy if you're doing something like just curl manually. Then generate is probably the better endpoint to use. If you're doing something more programmatically, then the chat endpoint is potentially you have more control over. It's easier to work with the generate endpoint, but it's you have more control in chat. But then you have to manage that, the question to the model, so the user role and the assistant role, the answer, user assistant. You have to keep managing that. But the benefit of managing that is that you can keep the more recent things, the full text of the more recent things, and as things get older, start summarizing that, and so that more and more things fit into that summary, and you can now have far more memory than what the context really allows for, because you're summarizing the answers and maybe pulling out different key moments or key words. And so you have a lot more control of that using the chat endpoint. Maybe a little vinegar or sauce. Yeah, I've heard like some sort of chili stuff. It's like, seems a little bit harsh, but okay. I mean, we've also tried. We've gone to the vet, and the vet said, "Well, there's nothing wrong with the paw. There's nothing there. There's nothing to. So maybe allergies. Like allergies on this dog. Come on, the dog has licked her paws before, but then stopped, and now she's licking it again. And so we put her on prednisone. Um, and so that was one thing, but all that does is make her pee more. She already pees more often inside the house than we want her to, like once every month or so. But putting her on that, it's like every day, pee in the house. Oh God! But it made no difference to licking the paws. Now there's the next step is to give her a bone. Yeah. So yeah. So there's giving a bone. Yes, there's that. But then she gets really nasty if you come up to her, because she's focused on protecting her bone and making sure that she's not being disturbed. And so she'll nip at anybody who comes close to her. So yes, that fixes one problem, but creates a whole new problem. Could be detergent using. So possibly the detergent on the floor. So we don't use a detergent. It's a our floors are it's processed wood from a company called Mafi out of Italy. Fancy house, sorry. And it's Siberian larch, and the detergent is really a something like cow fat or something like that. Is like a heavy fat in the soap, and you have to wash it by like throwing massive amounts of water on the floor, and it kind of re-moisturizes the floor. But it's the stuff that we've used for the 3 years we've been here, so that hasn't changed. In fact, the bottles we're using are the bottles that we bought 3 years ago and still using. So that's not it. But thank you. Good suggestions. LLM forgets your context. Suggestions. Chapter paper. Okay. How to save context? LM will see previous message. Yeah. So how do you save the context? So if you're using the generate endpoint, context will be one of the outputs from that. If you're streaming, then in the last JSON object that you get back from the model from Ollama, context will be there, and you can just copy that and paste that into the context part of the request. If you're using the chat endpoint, then you just have to take the output from the model and put that into the messages that you're going to send out as the latest answer. And you basically have to manage that. You have to keep your application needs to manage the questions and responses and store all that yourself, and you have to deal with it. So that's the benefit and downside of using chat versus generate. Yes, you are right. I'm sure I said something, but I love knowing that I am right. Let's see. Oh, so what did you ask before? Can you do an API-based RAG? Totally. Only doing Postman to chat with dogs? So Postman's a great tool. I hate Postman. I hate Postman. I just do not like Postman. I like to use another tool. So let me open up VS Code. And so let's increase up here. Okay, great. I can renew my Quokka. Let's close that, close that. Which profile am I in? Okay, I'm in default. So if I go into extensions, Jade, stop licking your paws. She can't understand me. And I go look for, what was it, HTTP? No, that's not it. So many. REST client, that's it. This is my preferred way of doing kind of the functionality of Postman. It's called the REST client. Terrible name. Well, I mean, it's a decent name, but hard to find. Let's make that a little smaller. And but it's just a beautiful way of doing this. So you can store this with your code, and you'll have a document called HTTP, and this is the format of the document. You have, this is going to be a post request to this endpoint. Optionally, you can put in the HTTP thing. And then anything below that first line is going to go into headers. And then you have a blank line, and then the document or the thing, the content of the post message next. And that's it. And then if you want to have another one, you can have as many of these in one document as you like. You have to put in 3 hashes. And so here's 2 different requests or 3 different requests separated by these 3 hashes. And then you can, when you're in the document, well, let's try creating a new document. I don't have a folder. Okay. Can I just create a new document? Okay. So I'll make this a HTTP. And now I can say post to HTTP ://localhost. Oh, localhost, and I'll use the generate. And I don't want any headers, and so then model is not that llama 3. Oh, need end quote. And then the prompt is, why is the sky blue? And then for any one of these things, it has a little hover button. So I can send the request. It sends that request, and we'll see a new document open up when it gets a response. Now it doesn't know, just like Postman, it doesn't know anything about streaming. So that's a little annoying. But when you get the response, there it is. It's just the text. But now this is a file, just like any other file, that you can then store in your repo. And it's just a simple file. There's nothing I need to import. As soon as I open up this document, it knows it's an HTTP format. And so it just gives me this little button, and it's amazing. So I love that. Wake up, Daddy! It's live. Yeah, I think our daughter has a bit of a temperature right now, so and my wife didn't sleep well, so I'll probably need to head in there pretty soon. Okay. Great. I do like anything LLM. Says red one. Great. Somebody has to. Maybe I haven't given it a good enough look in a while. I did a while ago. I need to look at it again. Okay. Use Insomnia. Yeah, I know a lot of people like Insomnia. I also sometimes have used I think it's called Paul. It's like just another one of these tools. It's taking a while to come up. They renamed it recently. Some other company took it over, Rapid API, and it's kind of gone downhill ever since. So I don't know what's going on with it. I'm just going to close it. Oh well. Let's see. LLMs are stateless. You need to pass the entire conversation. Yes. Otherwise, it has no idea what you're talking about. And so most tools, like the CLI is one such API client. That's what manages the manages the conversation. Now it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything intelligent with it. It'll just keep adding to the context, and so over time you might have it too big for the context, and so it starts forgetting stuff. And so if you build an application, you really want to think about how it deals with memory. At some point, what do you start summarizing the older messages? PHP dev. Yeah, I haven't used PHP, and I used PHP back when it was still PHP/FI. I haven't used PHP since it dropped the /FI from the name, which it's been a while. But I used to use PHP a lot. I think I switched from PHP to C#. That was the next language I used for web stuff. That's when where was I? I must have been working at Where was I working? Oh, I was working for a web development software company called NetObjects out of Redwood Shores, California, which was pretty great. Well, great place to be. Not great company. It was an okay company. I left there and I went to join Microsoft, um, doing Linux Compete. You know, how do we destroy Linux? I was being paid decent money to do that. It didn't work. Um, and then I was a product manager for SharePoint and a product manager for BizTalk and then sales engineer essentially. But yeah, I haven't used PHP since before that time. Laravel. Yeah, heard good things about Laravel. I know one of my colleagues at Datadog was really into that and was a guy named Jason Yee, totally into that stuff, but I haven't used it in ages. All right, we're at the end of the end of the. Can I finally start doing what I thought I was going to do? Oh, I've been going for nearly 3 hours. I've always wondered how people can stream for 3 hours. Here we go, 3 hours. Craziness. Cool. Well, I'm actually getting kind of tired. I start. So I mentioned at some point earlier. I always do all my videos standing up. Always do it standing up, and because when you're sitting down, I mean, I can sit down now. You won't be able to see me, but I can sit down now, and even if I sit up straight, it's hard to get excited. But when I'm standing up, I don't know, is the diaphragm's right, just in the right place, or whatever. It's easier to get excited and to raise just get excited, and I like getting excited about whatever I'm talking about. But it means I have to stand up. Now I am standing on something, which is I've had this for ages. It's this big mat. It's squishy, and it's different densities of foam depending on where you stand. And so this thing in the middle is a little squishier, but it's nice on your bare feet. And these parts are a little sharper. And this is kind of harder, but just some parts are softer than others. And so you get to really move around. So if you move around, you can kind of see me moving around and putting my feet on different things. It's awesome. So that allows me to stay standing for nearly 3 hours. I need some info about signing Ollama Keep Alive and Ollama Default Keep Alive. I think there's only one. I don't think there's a default versus not default. On Linux before, okay, so the things to keep in mind, first off, let's go back here. Let's go to, okay, we're on that page. Go to GitHub. And I don't know if there's a place where all the environment variables are listed. And so, some of them are in here. So there's Ollama host. Let's see if Ollama _ host, Ollama models, Ollama origins, Ollama _ keep _ alive. That is the one option. Oh, and then there's Ollama max q. Oh, interesting. I didn't know about that one. That looks like it's the bottom of the FAQ, so it must have just been added. But often something I've done is, do a search. And do a search for, I don't know if it's case sensitive, _. and look in the code, and we'll find all the those are build flags, so they don't really count. But I might be able to find other environment variables in here if any exist. Some of these are build flags, so they're not going to help you. But you'll be able to find other environment variables in there. So then once I know it's default underscore keep underscore alive, then if you come into, I think it was the fact I remember adding this. Go into set environment variables for Linux. So you need to run the systemctl edit Ollama service command, and that's going to add a configuration file for the Ollama service. It's what the Ollama service uses when you run Ollama serve. And you'll specify service, and then environment equals, and then inside of quotes, you have the entire phrase Ollama underscore keep underscore alive. And what is it? Just, then you set it's either a string or a number. So if you set a number, then it's number of minutes that you keep the model in memory. If it's a string, then it has to be a Go time string, I think it is. And so it has to has a number ending with either M or H or D. I think those are the only options. Indicating whether it's hours, minutes, or there might be an S. Hours, minutes, seconds. I don't know. I don't know. You have to set but basically that will go inside the double quotes in this file. Then you save and exit. Sometimes you might need a sudo on here to run this command. And then you run daemon reload and restart Ollama, and it should just work. Sometimes people will add this environment variable on their local login. Like they'll go into their profile.sh or .profile file and add the environment variable there. But that's just setting it on your interactive shell. And Ollama is running as a different user somewhere else. It was on your machine, but it's running as a different user. And so it's not going to see those environment variables. It's different on each platform. On Mac, you're going to use launchctl, setenv Ollama host, and then restart the Ollama application. And on Windows, you're setting a system environment variable. And then you have to restart something here. Either I just have to restart the terminal. I don't think that I think you have to actually there's a service you need to restart, and it might be easiest on Windows just to reboot. People are used to rebooting on Windows, so rebooting on Windows will definitely make it work. But that's how to set. Does that make sense? Anything else? Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, when I oh no, that made sense. Oh, so you are on Linux, yeah. But if you're on Linux, don't run Ollama serve in most cases. If you are assuming that you're installing using the install that's on the Ollama homepage, you've installed it there. There are also apt packages, and on Mac there's a brew package. Those are, and there's on Arch, there's whatever Arch uses. Those are going to be, on Arch I think you don't really have much choice, although it's interesting how often that breaks. But on Brew, Brew has always been frustrating. I love Brew. I've got a video about Brew that's pretty popular on my channel that I made, I don't know, 5 years ago. And I love it, but often if you install it with Brew, you get either an older, not for Ollama, but for other products, you get either an older version or just not a supported version, or it's just the worst way to do it. And you really have to use the shell script to install some different applications. So it's frustrating to, that community members will create these brew packages and not update them. It's not the case with Ollama, but with the Ollama one, I think you're rebuilding from source, and so you sometimes don't get the version number correctly if you do Ollama version, and then it's different. It depends on, it needs to get rebuilt each time by whoever the maintainer is, so it often gets out of whack whenever there's a new version. So it's frustrating. So if you're on a Mac, always install it from the installer on the Ollama website. If you're on Windows, always install it from the installer. Don't rely on, there might be a chocolatey package or something. And the same thing on Linux. Always, assuming you can, install it from the install script on the website, because you're just going to have a better experience. Try to assign variables to environment for service. So if you are starting Ollama using Ollama serve, which again, you shouldn't, you should be relying on the service to start it, then setting the environment variables the correct way won't work, because if you're running Ollama serve in your local environment, that's not going to work. So you need to make sure that the service is running. And the way to verify the service is running is just if you can run, without running Ollama serve on your local machine, if you can run Ollama run Llama 2 or whatever, Llama 3, then it's working. You just need to set the environment variable in the right place for how you're using it, and hopefully you're using it as a service, and then restart the service, and that's the way to get it to work. And it has to be spelled correctly. So come into the FAQ. I mean, it's so easy to type something wrong unless you do the actual copy paste. So copy it from there, paste it in, or really make sure you got 2 L's and all the right things for getting it in there. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I think I said I was tired like 20 minutes ago. So I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go sit down. Thanks so much for being here. This has been so much fun. I was shocked when I turned it on 2 hours and 53 minutes ago, and somebody showed up right away. And I'm amazed that so many of you have stuck around for 3 hours. I've seen some of the names here for a long time. Just today, it's amazing. So thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all again next time. I wish I could say that I'm always going to do this at this time on this day but it never works out. It does. It totally works. It totally works. I think your best bet, if you're still having problems, is being on the Discord. Hopefully you know about the Discord. It's discord.gg/Ollama. Discord.gg/Ollama. Yeah. Or if you're already on the Discord, then you're good to go. And ask that question. And there's so many people that have gone through often the maintainers are not there. Sometimes they are, but they're often not. And it's usually some other people who have gone through this experience and solved it. And so they might be able to guide you. I know there was initially a problem with Keep Alive not working correctly, but I think that was all resolved. So it should be all set. So you just need to make sure that you're on the latest version. Make sure you're on the latest version of Ollama, because there's always new versions, and sometimes people are a few versions back, especially if they're not using the default installer on the Mac, for instance. It's just updates for you. Anyway, so are they gonna? I preferred your first version. Are they gonna ask SSL because that's funny? But are they gonna add SSL? I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe. Um, it's not really relevant to the. I mean, you can. It's a local host. Originally, originally, it wasn't going to be um, a regular like HTTP connection. It was going to be what is it when you do a port, when you can what is it called? I think it was just a port. No, not port. A Unix pipe, I think it is. And then you always have to make the call with a certificate, which is what we were doing with as the team of us were building keypair.com, and so you always had to use this Unix pipe, I think it's called, which was such a pain. So I'm so glad we switched to HTTP. But will we will they have? When am I going to stop saying we? Will they have support for SSL? I don't know. I don't think so. So, okay, that's it. Oh, we're coming up to 3 hours. That's amazing. Thanks again for everyone being here. And yeah, Nginx Proxy Manager in front to add SSL. A lot of other tools for adding SSL. Traffic is a good option. Traffic version 3, I think, is now available. I started using Traffic because of who is it? Techno Tim had a Techno Tim, as well as Christian Lempa out of Germany, I want to say. Both have good tutorials about setting up traffic on your local home lab kind of machines, and that way you automatically get Let's Encrypt certificates on all your local internal to your home lab machines. Pretty easy tutorials to go through. And Techno Tim, I forget what his real last name is, but it just goes by Techno Tim, has just updated that traffic video for Traffic 3 just in the last few weeks, because it's like his most popular video ever, and so he's updated it with the latest information, and so that'll automatically grab Let's Encrypt certificates every time. So it's really pretty cool. So that's why I use internally at home. Well, no, not for Ollama though, because I have Ollama running on my local machine all the time. Okay, so I think I've said goodbye so many times. Don't ask any more questions. Goodbye. No, ask plenty of questions. Ask. And I hope to see you soon. Okay, where do we find that button to end that stream? Bye. Not yet. Let me end it this way.